what are those low-hanging fruits for this young farmer from Kybartai, so that he can start planning his future steps, especially if he wants to be one step ahead of all the others. So what kind of preparatory steps he should make from the perspective of 5 years time? So both in a short run and in the long run, what would be the measures that this young farmer should start his planning? So I'm starting from Donatas and I expect others to follow. Well, this farmer should come and visit us.
Bet yra paprastų dalykų, nuo kurių
There are some
reikia pradėti tą
simple
matyti tvarumo
truths
kelionę
which
arba galima
is a
pradėti.
starting point on your
Tokių
sustainability
žemai kabantys
journey.
vaisiai, tai yra iš
And in
tiesų,
terms of those low-hanging fruits,
kiek kuro aš sunaudoju, ar ne? Ar tas
well,
mano
you can
kuro
start by
sunaudojimas yra
looking at how
normalus pagal
much
mano
fuel
veiklą,
I
pagal mano
consume
apimtį,
and
pagal
is
mano
this
turimas
consumption
mašinas,
level is
ar ne?
quite okay,
Antras
given the
dalykas,
size of my
kaip
farm
aš
and
tręšiu,
the intensity of my
ar tas mano
activities.
trąšų
The
panaudojimas yra
second
optimalus,
question
ar aš
is
tręšiu
whether
lauke
I
ten, kur
use the
reikia, ar aš
fertilization in
tręšiu
an
visur,
optimal way.
ar ne?
Am I fertilizing the
Ar aš tą
entire
apskritai
field
valdau
or only
dalyką,
the
ar aš matuoju, žinau
relevant
savo
spots?
dirvožemio
Do I
būklę,
measure
kokie ten
the
elementai yra.
quality
Tai aš
parameters of
matyčiau,
my soil?
sudėliojus tos mechaninius tikslumo
So
elementus,
once
galima
I
pradėti tą
have all
kelionę,
these
kur
measurable
jau
elements,
aplipdyti
only
toliau
then I
visais
can
kitais
start my
dalykais, kur rodžiau
sustainability journey,
antruoju etapu.
which can
Tai
then
jau ir
have
pašaro
other
kokybės
elements
formavimą ir
added,
panašiai,
such
bet aš
as the
sakyčiau,
quality of the
pagrindiniai
feed that you
dalykai,
use on the
kiek
farm.
resursų aš
So
naudoju
first
ir
of all, I
kodėl
shall
juos
start by
naudoju tose
stock
vietose.
taking
Kuras,
on the
trąšos,
amount of
kur aš
the
išleidžiu pinigus. Sakyčiau,
elements used, the
ten
fuel,
reikėtų ieškoti.
the
Čia vienas irgi kolega yra
fertilizers, and this
pasakęs
is my
tokį
starting
palyginimą.
point.
Iš tikrųjų,
One colleague told me that
verslininkų arba
many
tarkim,
businessmen,
gamybinio verslo.
especially in the
Kiekvienas
production
veiksmas sukuria CO2
segment,
pėdsaką.
they
Tai tu,
leave
darydamas tą
a
veiksmą
CO2
efektyviau
imprint.
arba našiau,
So by
tu gali
doing
tą
it
CO2
more
sutaupyti.
effectively,
Bet
you
tuo
can
pačiu tu
save
sutaupyti
on the
gali savo
CO2,
pinigus
and at the
ir
same
uždirbti
time, you
daugiau.
can save on your money and can earn more on the very same input. So these are the low-hanging fruits. I do understand that. But okay, let us adopt a more futuristic perspective. Whether this young farmer from Kybartai should plan at least some minimum investments in order to be future-proof in long run.
Aš gal pirmą dar tokį loginį pagrąžinimą atgal padarysiu, kad
Well, allow me to go one step backwards. And the size of the farm doesn't have any direct impact on the progressive thinking of such a farm. There are many farms which use many advanced technologies or environmental friendly elements in their farming. Sometimes not the size is not all that matters. It's your approach that matters.
Einant toliau, tai matyt, sudėtingiau gali būti prieiti prie tų įmonių
It could be much more difficult to introduce major paradigm shift for larger companies. Well, the one that we've been in contact with was a farm of 700 hectares. And we're making only the initial steps on this farm. And all those preparatory stages that I mentioned are only just a few steps on this long sustainability journey. Thank you. Now moving on to the chair of the Farmers Union. What trends do you see? What could you add to what this group representative has just mentioned? So from a more general perspective, what could you say? There are various types of farmers, and there are low-hanging fruits for somebody, or maybe high-hanging fruits for somebody else. I think we spend so much time about the prospects, but we have to go backwards retrospectively. And the CAP, in general, which tries to strike a balance between the social rural areas, the economic affairs, and the environmental affairs. And in this period, these priorities have been regrouped. And it so happens that some of the farms have already invested and they're much more advanced compared to other farms, and they are applying smart technologies, and which is, by the way, quite a win-win situation for them. They are much more economically viable compared to conventional farms who don't do nothing. Sometimes a small farm is much more flexible, and youth is something which is it passes very quickly. But the good news about young farmers is that they are quite innovative and they are eager to try out something new, unlike the seasoned workers on the field. Thank you. Okay, let us go to Remigijus, who is representing the Institute of the Green Policies, so he may have an even much broader perspective. Maybe we don't, we haven't covered yet everything. What would be the starting points for a young farmer?
Ačiū iš tikrųjų. Aš norėčiau pradėti galbūt nuo globalesnių pasvarstymų, visų pirma nuo to, kad
global reflections. Why all of a sudden we have started talking about the greening initiative in agriculture? Within our institute, we are looking into energy efficiency, housing, or urban development, and agricultural development as well. And we know that the climate change is a crisis that we are living through. And the problem of material resources is quite huge. Lithuania, by the way, is not living very much sustainable. The world commemorates the dates when we have used the materials meant to last for the entire year. You can imagine that we have to commemorate this day on the 4th of April. So it means that Lithuania is self-sufficient only for the first quarter. And then for the remaining 3 quarters of the year, it is dependent on imported materials. So when it comes to young farmer and to the suggestions, I would encourage him to take some part of an ownership and leadership. And the leadership in agriculture is only possible when there is a criminal mass in this area, which can try to do just as Donatas tried to explain. Not to talk about funding, and instead, first of all, take stock of the current situation and to see the benefits, the economic benefits from the change or the shift in his usual way of behavior. I believe that all of us have heard Mr. Pranckietis and Mr. Ropės presentations, and I was very surprised to hear so well-experienced, highly experienced people who know which is the direction the world has to follow. But when it comes to the choice of values, then there is something lacking. I remember that Mr. Pranckietis mentioned that to reach the level of 40% of forestation is not a good solution, even though it's the best option ever to fight climate change. I don't believe that Mr. Pranckietis has never heard about this agroforestry, which is quite a new branch, a new segment emerging in the overall agricultural. Because forests can help us to capture all the nutrients in the soil, and therefore the farmers can participate, and they could find it as a nice alternative. Those who are growing plantations of forests by way of alleviating the pressure from the areas which are important for the nature. I remember that Mr. Ropė was talking only about the possibility of greening only with having funding made available. Well, I don't believe that everything boils down to the availability of funding. And let us go back to this case of farmer from Kybartai. The first step would be that I'm not growing and selling raw material. I'm producing and selling a final product. I have a cousin of my own who has only a couple of hectares. He has a berry farm on his fields. He's been working seriously hard It was a family business, 100%. And now that he has achieved the stable harvest and very good fruits harvest, he was soon to understand that to sell 1 kilogram for 3 and 4 euros by standing on the market yourself is not the best option. And therefore, he lyophilized strawberries or raspberries. He's now thinking of building his own juice production line or producing jams. And we have heard a lot today about the need to cooperate. Not all of the farmers have the necessary funding, and for that I believe that we could use the funding programs, and in that case we have a direct link leading us to the specialized markets which match the producers with the consumers, and your customer comes and buys your product because they know that you're selling a good thing, and then you are eager to pay the highest price possible. So that is the future for farmers, and when it comes to all the others, I can expand any further, but I would like to give the floor to others as well. I see that, I believe that a young farmer is taking note of those practicalities as well as some strategic points, and I think that that is the only way forward. Instead of producing and selling raw material, we should instead focus on the final product. And then, of course, we can move on towards the public sector, and we have a representative from the ministry level. We have heard quite a lot about the subsidies for the agricultural sector, and we see that sometimes it is possible to move mountains, even with the private initiatives. I believe that the ministries are also extending the counseling services or offering certain initiatives or by granting funding to some targeted and priority areas. Well, it could be the case that the farmer from Kybartai doesn't know any other way of going forward apart from being funded by the subsidies. Yes, indeed, we have a full basket of services, and the farmers can benefit from consultations. If you allow me, I would like to add on what has been said already. In terms of the measures and the trends being set by the state, and I remember that this morning the environmental minister mentioned that the decarbonization process is to be started, and one of such trends would be the agroforestry sectors. And we already have the date set for the 9th of December for the first group meeting. So I do expect that the members of the audience are going to join this discussion. It was mentioned that the farmers and the landowners should also take their share of responsibility for the measures to be implemented by setting the trend or the direction that they would expect us to be moving towards, to make sure that our agriculture is more sustainable and more environmental friendly. So I think it is a partial innovation here, because by way of trying to connect the public sector and the practicalities or the practitioners who are implementing the policy ideas. By hearing to what the other speakers have been saying, how to make sure that our process was not lagging behind what we have agreed upon. We already heard about regenerative agriculture, and this is the term which is not so frequently used, so I was very happy to hear it for the first time. So how shall we start telling or talking about regenerative agriculture? Well, of course, the words are not all that matters. What matters is what you do behind the words. How much CO2 emissions can you cut from your activities, and these are much more important. Therefore, this group of decarbonization working group is going to make the calculations in order to identify what are these low-hanging fruits. So what would be the measures that would have the highest effects with the least inputs? I heard somebody mentioning that CO2 emissions account for 10%, but in Lithuania, the agricultural CO2 emissions account for 30% of the national level. So I think that would complete my intervention on that topic. And moving on to the consultations that you mentioned, the technologies that you mentioned, they do not solve the problems automatically. You have to know how to apply them. For instance, the largest effect of non-arable farming is going to be much more efficient if other measures are being put in place, such as crop rotation or other knowledge is being put to practice. So we have to be knowledgeable in order to build a sustainable system. Thank you.
Tam tikrą komentarą, prašom.
Aš šiek tiek galbūt kas pasakyta.
We have another comment.
Mano nuomonė, nuo ko
You're welcome.
pradėti
I have
reikėtų.
to react. What should we start with? We started with talking about measures to reduce greenhouse emissions, but we have to calculate how we assess the emission volume, who is assessing, and so on. Of course, you are free to implement any measures, but if there is no accounting, then it will not be precise and as effective. It's not that we're too much behind. This is a hot topic everywhere, and there are different initiatives. In the US, on the 24th of June, they adopted the Growing Climate Solutions Act, which defines the way to establish market participants who will verify, standardize, and will be accredited to conduct inspections and checks. So it means that there should be a system in place. Maybe it is about private companies who would be appointed based on some objective criteria to do this assessment. We have also see that we have to avoid some mistakes, such as obstacles to enter a certain kind of market. As far as the regulation itself is concerned, there are other methods too. For example, in Canada, they have carbon credit prices threshold. What does it mean? It means that automatically there is a minimal price for which you will be able to sell those credits. Thank you. I would like just to add to this, the farmers, when we started to speak about the Green Deal on a public level in 2018 and 2018, we, the farmers, started to think about the reform, and every reform causes some interest and even maybe fear. On the other hand, everyone understood that the Green Deal opens up possibilities for the agriculture to expect many new activities which were not paid for previously. So this is what the colleague is saying now. There are some who generate these gases, others that may sell, and the plants is the most efficient lab that can lock carbon in biomass, and correspondingly this carbon stays in the root system, in soil. We have seen that it is not only about food production. Agriculture may be something servicing the energy industry. Also, we spoke about all other alternatives. Everything that is produced now based on different plastics, they can be replaced by natural fibers. Biotechnology is developing really rapidly, and it will require raw materials. So this formed a certain expectation on our side that there is a light in the end of the tunnel. And once we started the discussion, we see that there is too few supply cases. You know, it's like it's about a stick and a carrot, and at the moment we only see a stick, and there is no carrot in the market. Lithuania is in principle a green country if compared to other EU countries, and it means that the farmers have been moving in the direction of becoming more green. But of course, the farmer has to support himself, his family, and the workers. So the business has to be effective.
Aš tikrai norėčiau pridėti, kad mano supratimu,
I would like to add that the Green Deal opens up many new possibilities in the agricultural sector, also for the new farmers who find it difficult actually to buy land in Lithuania. We always interfere with politicians and form political approaches. We criticize when we see that we should criticize. The procedure to buy land is really imperfect. A young farmer from Kybartai wants to buy a couple of hectares of land. He can actually agree with some grandmother to sell this land to him, but she has to apply for a permission to sell. He has to apply for a permission to buy. All the information ends up to the National Land Service, and then the National Land Service leaks the information about the future deal because the neighbors have the priority right. So the procedure is far from being perfect, and it has to be amended. It's important to make sure that we do not deviate from our political course. We have to work together with the like-minded people. And what do we see now? Usually, before 15th of November, manure was allowed to take out to the field when the vegetation period is still going on. This year, this period was extended to the 1st of December. And since we don't have the proper temperature, the suitable temperature, there is a high chance that the manure will end up in the drainage ditches. So these kind of imperfect procedures are still in place, and I'm not happy about them. We must have one clear direction and put all efforts to reach the goal. Let me bring your attention to the sciences. We have great universities, we have agricultural academy and colleges. And I think when I discuss on Facebook about soil erosion, when I discuss on Facebook and someone tells me, where did you hear about it? There is no erosion, we are no Africa. So then I ask, do you follow any scientific developments? And most probably they don't. So what I'm saying is that it's something we should keep in mind, the scientific facts. It will help us to transform the agriculture sector. I don't think that the Green Deal is against farmers or Lithuanian farmers are bad. No. What I'm saying is that we have to become cleaner in all sectors: energy, transport, industry. and agriculture too. We have to become cleaner. Otherwise, we will have no potential to develop. Great. Thank you for a great discussion. Let me just step in. On the one hand, we're talking about decarbonization in agriculture, the reform, and we already described the potential to a young farmer. We described the potential to build added value, and we discussed different possibilities. Then we moved to certain challenges. We spoke that there is no system to assess what is emitted, for example. So assessment is not there. Then we lack consistency in implementing of a certain political priority. And coming to the end of the discussion, what is it that we need to actually start implementing the Green Deal? The ministry representative said that there would be a working group again, but maybe there are some catalysts that would speed us up on our way to the change.
Žinot, vat iš čia dabar ką klausau, iš tikrųjų tokių
I was sitting and listening here to this wonderful ideas and what we lack actually. The diversity of voices in our discussions, I think. So that you should join our ongoing discussions with the farmers and their representatives, so that these directions get support. Speaking about the process of decarbonization, when we opened up registration for the working group, it was a disclaimer that you agree to participate in the process if you support the goals which are on the agenda. It means that once we come to the discussion, we should not dispute whether or not climate change is taking place. We should directly go to the constructive discussion as to what we can do together and what is the role of everyone in this game. So what we need is cooperation between all the stakeholders, and we need to work together.
Bet aš dar norėčiau papildyti, kas buvo pasakyta dėl labai konkrečių dalykų, ar ne, dėl apskaitos, tarkim.
You also spoke about the assessment, the calculations, and I do agree that right now the issue of assessment is rather abstract, is based on very rough figures, and we do feel this lack of more precise calculation on a farm level, and we're looking for possible solutions that would help us to make the calculations more precise. And we are also thinking of what is the best way to use the assessment. We spoke about carbon credits, CO2 markets, and I do see the demand of such assessment and calculation in this field. So the money is paid not for anything, but for CO2 consumption. And we see similar processes going on in Europe. I think there will be proposals from businesses. We will have proposals from certification systems, CO2 market, and so on. And the European Commission plans to propose a certain unified certification system next year.
Mokslo momentas irgi buvo paminėtas, tai visiškai pilnai pritariu.
You also mentioned the science, and I fully support your position. I studied in the Netherlands, in one of the best agricultural universities in the world. And it would be very good for us to have international experience from the best foreign schools, so that we can move forward with the experience. And there are such possibilities. I think we're going to have them in the future, and then we can apply the knowledge here. Thank you very much. We have some minutes to react. Yes, I would also like to propose something that I mentioned yesterday in a Parliament committee meeting. I said there is a general management principle to develop a specific plan with measurable indicators, implement the plan, monitor the implementation, and that's all. Because if our plans are abstract, just aimed at improvement or achieving. It's not a plan. It's just some kind of motto. And it doesn't make sense. We should also listen to others, try to get as much information as possible, and make decisions faster. For example, I mentioned the influence of scientific institutions. Donata spoke about smart farming, target farming. But this year, I think in spring, or was it last year, the ministry stopped financing small farming to collect different characteristics of soil throughout the country. Or we wrote a letter to the Ministry of Agriculture where we said that there is a very poor situation around the fertilizing issues. The law is declarative, and we have to implement a clear principle from the producer and importer to the field. There should be a full control, and it's possible to do. We speak about digitalization during this conference. It's a very easy thing to implement. It doesn't require a lot of time or cost. But the answer from the ministry, unfortunately, was very formal. They said that the farmers will not support this question. I think maybe it is a good time, but we should choose the right form. Perhaps we should organize consultations and so on. Otherwise, we will not manage the situation.
Ūkininkai dar turi sureaguoti, taip?
Do the farmers want to react? Yes, as we are closing down the discussion, let me summarize, and I would like to end up on a positive note. When a young farmer, which we mentioned, wants to break through in business, what would motivate him most of all? First of all, there must be a very clear goal. What is it that we are striving for? And the goal has to be very specific, very tangible and reachable. We need to define all the steps which are necessary to reach the goal. And I'm sure we will have the actions initiated by a young farmer. He will invest into reaching this goal. And in the institutions, I often hear about green brainwashing. So I think we should be brainwashing less and working more. Great ideas. Donatas, you wanted to say something? Maybe you can finish as you started. Yes. I also wanted to finish on the positive note. We do have huge possibilities. Decarbonization is a possibility for all of us. We just need to use it. Research shows that it's cheaper than removal of CO2 from the air. It's something really good. But we need to agree. How do we proceed? Maybe we should encourage others to do it. Maybe we should build up rules. And then people will want to do it. And also, it's an additional source of income for the farmers. So I think we all have the same interest, but it has to be properly implemented. We are speaking about nice things about future, but we will not have this future if we don't have people who will be able to work here. And this is a problem which we have to discuss. We need to have people who know how the target technologies work, how machinery works, how to make the assessment, how to calculate the emission, what processes take place in agriculture. We have fewer people now, and if we don't have people in the future, we will not be able to proceed. Thank you very much for summing up our discussion so well and for making the right emphasis. I would like to thank all of the panelists. I have heard all of you. Everyone wants to cooperate. Businesses want to cooperate, and the association unites all the farmers and it has its own voice, and I see a very good platform for communication. And communication needs time. We will have a coffee break, and perhaps we can think about the further action plan when we're thinking about joining formal working groups where we hope to see tangible results after sustainable and construction result-oriented discussion. So thank you very much again. I'm very happy with this great interactive discussion. Thank you very much to the panelists and the key speaker.